Question becomes, in a standard kind of personal training sort of world, what you'll see personal trainers use machines all the time, I think because it's easy, because they think their job is to be a rep counter, right? Like, okay, we're going to do lat pull downs for 3 sets of 8, and I'm not super anti-lat pull downs, but the question is, what makes something like a squat better than something like a lat pull down, right? There's a criteria that we can use, right? So we can look at, like, effectiveness of exercise. Effectiveness, okay? And we use 3 criteria here. So number 1 is most muscle used. Like the most joints, right? Muscles cross joints. How many muscles are used in a squat? Lots. How many joints are prime movers on a squat? That's an easier one to do, right? How many joints are moving on a squat? Well, the hips, so there's 2, the knees, and the ankles, right? They all 3 have to move completely on a squat, right? So tons of muscle mass, right? And all of my back, everything through my back and torso and core, I hate the word core, but they have to be in isometric contraction. So your whole body is being worked. That bar is sitting on top of your traps, and everything below that's getting worked. Now, how is that better than, say, a 1-arm dumbbell curl? How many joints are working here? 1, the elbow. So I know from the very beginning, with criteria number 1, that a squat is significantly better than, say, a 1-arm dumbbell curl. Okay, number 2. Most weight used. So again, I can look at the example of, say, a squat, where maybe I would squat 405. Maybe a girl squats 200 pounds, 135, 155. Is that more or less than she can 1-arm dumbbell curl? Way more. Is it more or less than she can leg curl? Way more. Okay? Is it more or less than she can do a leg extension? It's more. Okay? And on a leg extension, how many joints are getting moved? Just the knee. Maybe 2 knees. Okay? So that's how we know that a squat is more effective than a leg extension. See, here's the deal. The body works as a system, not independent of itself. It's the sum of its parts, not the sum of its each part working individually. This is why physical therapy doesn't work very often. If you pull your hamstring, if you have a hamstring tear or you pull your hamstring, the first thing they do is they stick you on a leg curl machine and make you do leg curls. The problem with that is that's not a natural human movement. Your body doesn't work where the hamstring only works by itself. Find anything you do in normal human movement where the hamstring is isolated and works by itself. It doesn't. It works in a system, right? And a squat is a system. A deadlift is part of a bigger system. So that's why those kind of exercises are really, really important. Then the third, so effectiveness is most muscle used, most weight used for the most effective, I'll put the largest, effective range of motion. The largest effective range of motion. So, squat, what's better? A quarter squat where I take weight off and I go like this, or a full squat where I go all the way down below parallel and come back up. Okay, well, why is a full squat? Because here's the deal. We have kind of a weird caveat here, because which one uses more muscle? Okay, well, the full squat uses more muscle because the full squat uses the hamstrings and the quarter squat really doesn't. But how many joints are used in a quarter squat and a full squat? They're the same. But I can still show you how a full squat uses more muscle. Now, which one uses more weight? A quarter squat actually does. So the kind of tiebreaker here is that the range of motion dictates what's most effective. So with a quarter squat, even though I might use more weight, and even though I still use a lot of joints, I'm only going to go to here, and I might do 600 pounds. 400 pounds all the way down is the most effective. Now, what about ass to grass? That's the most range of motion, right? But here's what happens. So in a quarter squat, it's going to look something like this, right? Bars here, right? So I'm quarter squatting. So I get a lot of pull on the knee from the quads. There's a lot of pressure on the knee. The hamstring is not stretched at all. The glute's not stretched at all. My hip is really open. So I can use a lot of weight, but I'm not getting a lot of muscle mass getting stretched and contracted. In a full squat, a standard full squat, It's going to look like this. Now I still get the knee work, but instead what happens is now my hamstring gets pulled. So my quad gets pulled, my hamstring gets pulled. They're pulling on the knee equally, so it's safer on the knee. By the way, the hamstring essentially does the same job as the ACL. An ACL keeps your tibia from sliding forward. The hamstring does the same thing. You want to protect people from ACL injuries, you build up their hamstrings. Okay? Now, if somebody's out running on AstroTurf and catches their foot and turns their knee sideways, that's not going to help. But if it's just a standard, what we see especially in teenage girls, they have a weak hamstring almost always leads to ACL tears. All right, so this way is going to do both. Here's what happens in an ass to grass squat. What we end up here is we get lots of shear on the knee, and to get down this low, we have to relax the lumbar spine. So we get our back from being in extension, our low back from being in extension to being in flexion. And there, we risk injury at the low back, right? So obviously part of the squat is we got to keep a flat back. So here we keep a flat back, but we're putting all the pressure on the quads. Here, we keep a flat back, but we stress the quads and the hamstrings, and the back, so the back's going to hold. And here, to enable to get low, we've got to really stress the knee, and we end up having to run the lower back, unless it's a hypermobile, skinny female, which is pretty rare. You know, you're not going to coach a lot of 95-pound girls. Okay? So again, that's the effect. That's how we kind of test effectiveness. And so out of this, we get. So we get number 1 is the squat. Number 2 is the deadlift. Number 3, and these are probably interchangeable, is the press. What we call the press is just the overhead press. You guys call it a military press. We call it a press. And number 4 is the bench press, right? These are the 4 primary best exercises. Now there's a couple more that work really well. That's a snatch and a clean. You guys know what those are? Snatches and cleans are awesome. If you have athletes, we teach them snatches and cleans. But if you have a 45-year-old soccer mom, D-trained, that's a big pain in the butt to try to teach a mom how to clean. There's not a lot of need to do it. It teaches explosiveness. We can probably get that from other things. Okay? And then outside of that, you talk about accessories. We have a very small pool of accessories that we pull from. We do pull-ups and chins. Work really good. We do dips. We do glute ham raises. We do lunges. We do kettlebell swings. We do planks. Or any kind of abs like that. Am I missing any, Will? That's the basic. Everybody's going to curl, right? Curling's stupid. Curling does nothing for you, but everybody curls, so everybody wants big arms. Sun's out, guns out, that's what we do. So you don't have to worry about curling, but everybody will anyway. So, oh, rows, kind of like rows. So that's what I'm missing.
Push-ups.
Push-ups, thank you.
Which all of these are functional.
All these are functional, so if you look at like all our accessory movements, almost all our body weight, functional, full range of motion sort of lifts, right? Multi-joint, no isolation, there's no isolation stuff there. It's not a single isolation movement, right? It's all big stuff, and so that's how we, so literally, if I look at those things, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, and then for conditioning, we do stuff like prowler and tire flips and stuff, but for basic exercises, my personal training clients, my boot camps, my power lifters, my top level athletes, 99% of them use these exercises only, will never use another exercise. There's a few other ones that are okay, good mornings and stuff like that, but we don't get on hammer strength machines, we don't do a lot of isolation curls, isolation tricep push downs. I like if they got good elbows, I like I don't know, you call them a skull crusher or something like that. It's a tricep extension. You guys know what that is? Yeah, right, so lay it down. So it's a pretty good exercise. It's kind of nasty on the elbows sometimes, but so those are kind of effective exercises. And that's how we gauge effective exercise here. There's not a lot of use for stuff outside of that.